What's going on, guys? RC Pilot Will here, and I got a setup for you guys for the Freewing F-15 90mm by that you could get this off Motion RC, a couple other places, Castle RC, whatever. But I mean, I bought mine from Motion. So, but we're gonna talk about some setups over the IX-12 radio, similar with the IX-14, IX-20. We could probably even do the same stuff with the NX radios too. Pretty sure you can, but I think I need a minimum of 10 channels to do this. So an 8-channel radio won't get away with it, but a 10-channel radio or better will get away with the setups that I'm getting ready to go over. So I'm gonna get it plugged up and get the juice going, and we'll get into it. Before I get things plugged up, I want to show you guys this real super clean setup in here. Got my lead to my ESC here. Got my lead to my 5280 afterburner lights in there, and you can see, guys, real clean setup. You know, they got a lot of wires at the back. Underneath the battery tray, only thing we have under there is the light controller and the landing gear controller. So that's gonna be the only thing underneath there. Of course, I'm gonna be powering this with an SFC. And of course, I got my connections here for everything forward of the battery tray, which is going to be the steering servo, the retract for the front, and the retract door for the front. So all of that's set up there. And I'm going to show you guys where I got that receiver here and there. And some of you probably already know, but I'll show you where I got that receiver here and there. Okay, so we got it all powered up. All the lights are going and everything. First thing I want to say is that what I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to go ahead and show you the receiver location. I have been inspired by John of Two Bros Radio Control on where this servo I have located here. And so the only difference is he actually put his servo for his F-15, his receiver for his F-15 under the, what's it called? Air brake. Only difference is that he put his receiver under there and disabled the air brake. Where I, on the other hand, did not disable the air brake. And the receiver is tucked nice and neatly underneath there. I don't know if you guys can get a good look, but I'm gonna try to zoom in, see if I can. Well, I can't get my light on for some reason, but I'll show you guys here where it's in there, tucked nicely away. Wires ran down through the hole back up in there. Telemetry wire and everything coming through, and I got the antenna wires orientated correctly. One running longitude, one running latitude of the bird. So got all that put in there. I will admit it was a pain. It did give me a headache, but it does go down. Another thing I did do to this plane, which is sort of an upgrade in my book, is I changed the nose wheel. So, cover the light. The nose wheel that normally goes on here, it's a single one, but this is from the Stinger 90. This is a Stinger 90 front nose strut, and just goes right in there. It just tucks right in, no problem. Only thing I did notice is that I had to flip the shaft. So the shaft here, I had to flip that shaft. The shaft was flipped the other way, where the head was on this side of the wheel, and I had to flip that around. because it wasn't clearing with the head being over here and the collar being over here. So it wasn't clearing anything. It was getting hung up. So you just flip the shaft, and you can use a Stinger 90 nose wheel. I know it's not scale, but I mean, you got 2 wheels up front. That gives this thing a little bit more beef. We're talking about RC planes, guys. We're not talking about the real deal. You know, they're built a lot better, a lot more beefier than these scaled down models. Got the bros low bounce on the rears, so that gives it a little extra help there, a little cushioning. Then this is all just try to take some stress off of the airframe when coming in for a landing. So that's mainly what that's all about. Now, I did put this plane back together. This is a new fuselage. I did have a crash with it, so you'll notice the wings don't look as fresh as the fuse, and the canopy doesn't look as fresh as the fuse because those are the original components. Only thing I did replace was the fuselage, and I had some replacement horizontal stabilizers from before, which they kind of match with the fuselage of the plane. But the vertical stabs are still the same. Those are the originals from when I first bought the jet from Motion RC. So that's how that goes. All right, so you guys know how I do it. If you've seen me talk about setups before, you already know how I do it. I run 150% rates. I run about 70%, 71 expo. So I'm going to get to all of that here in a little bit. And I also use a lot of expo on the rudder, just so when I'm on the ground, it makes tracking a little bit easier. I'm not yanking and janking the plane around a lot. So I also do that. Another thing I did do on here, so I'm going to get around to, is that I did the thrust tubes on here as well. So you can't notice them, but you probably can. That I did paint them white so that they help with the light from the afterburner show up really good. So, because without the thrust tubes in there, you can see them really well. The last jet had some silver, like gray ones in there. It didn't really work out as well as it did when it didn't have thrust tubes. It looked a lot better when it didn't have the thrust tubes because it was a white surface that it was reflecting off of. So now I got another white surface. So that's going to actually make it pop a lot better. You're going to be able to see those colors of the afterburner light. And it's going to look really nice there. 90mm inside that I'm running is a 9-blade fan with the Freewing aluminum housing. So I don't have any of that, the housing trying to flex, none of that stuff. So I don't have any flex going on there. So we're gonna get this thing back up for a maiden here soon. It's really windy out lately. Past 2 weeks, it's been hard for me to try to get out and do any flying. So I haven't had any flying videos up because the past 2 weeks has been pretty tough. Actually, last weekend I was at work, so I couldn't do any flying then. This weekend, it washed out on Friday. It also rained a little bit Saturday. And today is 30 something mile an hour gusts out there. And according to the direction of the wind, it is cross on the runway. So I'm definitely not going out there trying to fly anything today. Not with a 30 mile an hour crosswind for gusts. So if it was going straight down the field, I probably would take something like the Viper 90 out. It wouldn't have mattered. But crosswind, no, that's a lot. I'm not going to chance that one. Not saying I can't do it, it's just not going to take the chance. But on to the setups. So I do my taileron setup, of course, you know, and I'm gonna show y'all how I got that set up on a switch. I actually have it on the switch here, which is switch F, which I could turn it off. Let's bump that up just a little bit. So that's just, you know, my normal tail setting where I don't get any tailrons going on there. And of course, now I have tailrons. And if I'm saying that incorrectly, guys, I'm Southern. I'm from Charleston. What can I say? But yeah, of course. And then another thing I do have set up that I'm gonna go over on the I'm gonna pull the screen up for the radio here in a little bit, and that is, I think I was trying to tell you guys about it before on my L39 video, but I couldn't set that up like that because it used I actually need more channels in order for me to do that. So, and I don't have enough channels. That plane uses a lot of stuff, and I would need more channels for it. But I have the what I call auto air brake. So I just put it into auto air brake mode, or active air brake is what I got it called. And what happens is when I go for my takeoff flaps, sorry, that's locking the gear. When I go for my takeoff flaps, which I do need to adjust my flaps a little bit more, but when I go for my takeoff flaps, nothing happens. But when I go for my landing flaps, all that off of one switch. So you see right here, I'm only hitting one switch. Remember, I hit this switch over here to activate the air brake. Just hitting one switch. So that's how I do my auto air brake. Now I can disable that where it doesn't do that when I got landing flaps in case I don't need it. I feel like I don't need it for the approach. I just won't worry about putting the air brake up. I also have it where I can manually throw the air brake without having any flaps on. So, I mean, or I can throw it with just takeoff flaps if I don't need a whole lot of flaps. So that's the setup that I do have there, and I do like that setup. I'm actually planning on using that same setup, that same mixing for the Tomcat. So the Tomcat has wing sweep, and this will work for the 80 mil or the 64. It should work for the 64. The 64 I think uses standard servos, but I know the twin 80 uses basically like serverless retracts. So you should be able to do that using on the twin 80, where you can set a mix to basically when you're at a certain point in throttle, you can add that point on there, and when you're at a certain point in throttle, it'll automatically sweep the wings, and you don't have to reach for a switch to sweep the wings. And when you come out of that point, it will sweep the wings back out because you're slowing down. Kind of like how I would think the actual plane would do. So at least I see it do that on Ace Combat. You get a certain amount of speed, and all of a sudden the wings will sweep on their own. So, but yeah, I'm not gonna get into that because, like I said, I don't have the plane. I haven't set it up yet, but that is a plane on my list. It was the F-14 Tomcat. So I'm gonna get a hold of that. The twin 80 actually. I'm gonna get a hold of that, and I'm gonna get that set up, and I'll show you guys that when that happens. But as of right now, let's go ahead and jump into the transmitter and look at how I have the setups for the the mixing for tailrons, because I don't use tailrons mode, tailrons settings in the transmitter. So I don't actually use the taileron setting in the transmitter. I used dual elevator and normal wing with normal flaps. So it's one flap, one aileron, one rudder, dual elevator. And I do this through here, and then I set it all up. There is a way you can do this where you can set it up where you have for instance, a receiver that has safe or gyro gains. This receiver does not have any gyro in it, guys, so I'm not going to have any of that on here to show you. I can show you that with the SC27. If you guys would like to know how that's done, just let me know, and I'll make a quick little video on the side about it. If I don't, throw a little video on the side about it after this. But anyway, jumping in to the transmitter. Okay, guys. So here we go. We got our transmitter here, and you see how I have mine set up. I have the timer, the flight pack, voltage, XYZ, blah blah blah. Good stuff, right? Okay, so now we're going to jump into talking about the mixing. So first thing I want to show you guys is, before I go into the mixing, is that I want to show you what my channel aircraft type is and my channels are set up or whatnot. So as you can see here, I showed you I do one aileron, one flap with dual elevator and one rudder. So that's how I have that set up. And I did this like this because at one point I did have a gyro in here. And there's a way that you do it when you have a gyro, that the gyro still actually it controls the plane as if it has tailrons the entire time, versus controlling it like a normal wing type and a normal tail type. So and I can show you guys that too in the SC27, the E-flite SC27, or FMS SC27. What is that? That's an FMS SC27. So yeah, I can show you guys that on that later. But of course, with my channels, I have my channels set up 1, 2, 3, and 4, which can't be changed. Gear, which is 5, and the auxiliary 1 is channel 6, which is my flaps, and auxiliary 2, which is channel 7. That's also on the elevator stick, and auxiliary 3, channel 8. That's where I have my air brake is on. So of course down here I would also be running channel 9, which is doing nothing. I would be running my AS3X and stuff right there. My right slider, which is on channel 11, that will allow me to adjust AS3X in the air. So, but I'm currently not doing a gyro, so none of that's gonna matter. Moving on to port assignment. A port assignment is gonna be, of course, throttle, aileron, because I have one aileron output. Right elevator on 3, rudder on 4, gear on 5. 6 is gonna be the flap. 7 is the left elevator, and 8 is the air brake. So that's how that would go. Of course, you see auxiliary 5 is auxiliary 5, auxiliary 6 is auxiliary 6, and 7 is 7. 9 was inhibit, because 9 on a 8-channel setup for dual elevator, channel 9 is what they want you to naturally use for the left elevator. But I don't have a 9-channel receiver. I'm using an 8-channel receiver, so I kind of lose one channel. But hey, it's a 12, so I'm down to 11 channels. But But that's basically how that setup is there. I'll jump back, and I'll jump into, now I'll talk about audio events and none of that. That's all you guys' preference. I like having audio call outs. I like having telemetry warnings. I have warnings set up for my signal. I have warnings set up for my battery voltage when it hits a certain voltage. Excuse me. When it hits 3.8 volts per cell. So I do the math and I come up with 3.8 volts per cell. And when I get to that, I know my bare minimum is going to be 3.5 volts per cell. So at that point, I know I need to start setting up for landing. That'll give me time to do a go around if I need to, and then bring the plane in. And that's 3.8 volts per cell under like 70% throttle. If I got it at 100% throttle, and I know I could bring it down and just kind of cruise around about 70%. But I start hearing that call out at 70%. Then I know I need to go ahead and start bringing it in, because 70% is plenty to move this plane around in the turns as well, and get you down out the air safely. So, which by the way, my crash happened on this thing, guys, because of the I was going inverted, and I went for inverted flight mid turn, and my brain just didn't process fast enough to bring the plane back, not bring it back around, but to invert my controls of the plane. Of course, I inverted elevator, which is fine, but I didn't get my roll right. So my roll was off. And I was just trying to do a little too much. I should have waited till I got straight, then went inverted, and I would have probably saved it. But jumping back to the screen here, going to mixing, and we'll go to let's look at a servo setup. So like I told you guys, I do 150% rates. So on my travel here, if it pulls up, there you go. I do my ailerons at 150, my elevator, of course, 150, my rudder is at 150, and my left elevator is at 150 as well. I just do all of those at 150% on the rates, or 150 on the rates, and that gets me that or whatnot. Of course, whatever you got to flip flop for reversing, you do all of that. But out of that, moving forward into the mixing. So this is where a lot of the magic happens. So I have quite a few mixings here, and the sweet upgrade on this thing allows you to label them so that it doesn't just say mix 1, P mix 1, P mix 2, P mix, and you get lost. So I got my gear lock mixing, I got my tailrons mixing. So we're gonna go into tailrons mixing, and we're gonna look into that. And if it pulls up. Now, like I said, I know other people do this differently, and I know for a fact that Two Bros definitely does it differently. He uses the curves. So I just go ahead with the normal, and it seems a little simpler to me. The curves does seem to be a little tough. So I just messing with the curves to get a little aggravating. But anyway, guys, so what I'm doing is I'm going with my aileron mixed into my left elevator. My aileron is the master over my left elevator. Probably shouldn't say the word master, but anyway, it is at 60% on the rates. That's why I'm using 60% on the rates. So if you watch here, you see where I get 60% of the travel on the tailrons, but you notice the ailerons are still moving mainly most of that. And tailrons, they do influence it. It's just because it's not moving as much, it does influence it, and it does make it spin like crazy. No offset, of course. I don't set it to trim, because I don't want trimming done in the tail. If I need to trim it, I want all my trimming done on the main wings. So, and that's basically how I got that set up uh, for that or whatnot. And then so you go here and you got, let's jump back out, and that's the gear lock. Now here is the safe tail. That's something that you guys are going to want to do for um, for having a gyro and for also using safe. So safe tail is for the tailrons, because if you set one of these up and you got it set up for, originally you want to go in and set it up as tailrons. When you first put the receiver in, and you got it all set up, you want to do the tail type as tailrons. You want to do normal wing, one elevator, one flat, one rudder. But you want to do your tailrons A or tailrons B, whichever one it is that works. And you want to set it up for that. You want to go ahead and set up your gyro, set up your safe, set all of that stuff up just like you normally do if you just want to just fly it with just tailrons only. And you'll get all of that going, and then you'll then turn around and go back into your um, your tail type, and you change your tail type. Of course, make sure you got all your channels set up, but you'll change your tail type to one rudder, dual elevator. And that gives you the option to be able to switch the tail runs on or off. Um, so that's what that'll do for you there. That'll give you that option to switch that around. However, I chose to go with um, that setup when I had the gyro in it. I don't have a gyro in it, so just right now, all that receiver sees is that I'm just running dual elevator. Doesn't care about anything else. But here's the thing about having the gyro, and here's the thing about if you put it in safe. If you put the plane in safe and you don't um, have the safe tail set up, what's gonna happen is every time you give a right command for a right roll and you're in safe, the tail is not gonna move like normal like this. So let's say I'm wanting to do a right roll. So my wing over here on the right side, the aileron would be doing correctly, but the tail would be doing this, which is going to set you up for a crash. So it won't do it aggressively. It's just gonna do it just so slightly. But with the safe tail setup that I put in the mix here, what that does is that neutralizes safe from trying to compensate, but it's compensating incorrectly. So it neutralizes it, and it basically makes the tail move slightly in the same direction that you want it to go. So if you want to do a right roll, you want to roll it to the right, it won't move as aggressive as I'm moving it there with the safe tail setup on. It won't move it as aggressively, but it'll move it slightly. And the thing about the safe tail setup is that is for when you're not using tailrons. So let's say you're not in tailrons mode and you're using the safe, you go flip it in the safe, and you go to bank the plane to the right, but you bank the plane to the right, but your elevator on the right side moved up, and of course your elevator on the left side would be moving down. it would try to fight the roll that you're attempting to make, making the bank wider and causing you more problems than helping you. But with the safe tail, what it does is when you move to that right, it slightly adjusts it. And this is only when you don't have tailrons on. It slightly adjusts it to follow what you want to do. And of course, it also decreases the turn of the bank so that it makes it easier for you to make the bank. So yeah, so that's what that safe tail is all about. You see, I got the rates here set up for 40%. That neutralizes it. It's also on switch 1. I'm position 0 on my B switch, which is where I usually put my safe and my AS3X at. But like I said, this receiver doesn't have a gyro. I'm not going to get rid of that setup because eventually I probably will put a gyro back in this plane, in this jet. So the auto air brake, that is the one that I showed you guys where I could just hit one switch and make everything happen. So the key to this is, if you watch over here in the left side for auxiliary 3, when I hit the air brake, you'll see where it moves.
Active air brake.
When I go all the way up, it went to 100%. It doesn't do anything except for jump around from 100% to negative 100%. But when I go into that, if I manually put up the air brake, then I have to go all the way back down to get the air brake to go away. But if I turn on the auto air brake, which it would be the G channel, switch into the middle, and then the rate is going to be 100% of C. 100% of C is going to cause 57% of auxiliary 3. So when I go for, now if you watch C, which is going to be flaps, FLP, when that goes into 100%,
flaps,
watch where it goes.
Air brake deployed.
Of course, there is, what else is there that I did to make that happen? I forgot what it was. But basically, it's going to allow that to kick auxiliary 3 past the point of which the serverless retract will acknowledge the signal as it's time to change state. So that's basically what that does, is it just puts auxiliary 3 just over 0, puts it 57 points over 0. So it does the board inside the serverless retract, or the jack screw, or whatever it is you want to call it, it acknowledges that as a time to change state, and it changes state, and it goes into, of course, you see the air brake is deployed. And when I switch it back to takeoff flaps, it still keeps it up because auxiliary 3 hasn't fell beneath 50% or 50 points negative. Now when it hits 100 points negative, that means, hey, change state. No, we're not going to stay in this position. So that gives you a little bit to work with. Like I said, with a servo, it's a little different. I do have it where it's set up on a servo on my SU 27. because I did use a servo there because there was no place to put a receiver in the air brake area with the with everything still in place. Well, let me pull that back. Yeah, I could have put it in there. It would have been tighter. It would have been a lot more hectic. It would have probably gave me a bigger headache than this thing did, but I was able to put it in there. Um, but I used the servo. I actually have a Freewing servo um, lifting on a push rod, lifting the door or whatnot. It also makes it easier in case I want to access it for servicing or changing some stuff up. All I got to do is just lift it up. Now with this, it's a totally different story. This is it's going to be a whole nother ball game. You're going to have to power the plane up to access your receiver. Um, Now, I'm pretty sure the question is, well, what if I can't get my transmitter's not binding or it's not picking up or the receiver just decided to fail, XYZ, and I can't get in there? Well, there is a failsafe I put in place for that. And I have a extension on the lead for the air brake retract. So I have an extension on the lead for the air brake retract that I can disconnect the air brake retract servo and the servo lead for the retract, and I can hook a servo tester, and I can activate it and make it lift up. That way I could get in there, and if I got to change it out, or whatever the case may be. So there is a fail safe for that. I do have something in place. Um, so you guys don't have to worry about, if that's going to be, okay, a thing or whatnot. Um, but yeah, I thought that one through. You gotta have fail safes. You gotta have redundancy. You ain't got much redundancy on these things, but you just gotta have that stuff in place. Jumping over here, looking back at the transmitter, we're going to dual rates and expo, and I know I told you guys I run a 150% rates, but I don't run 125% on the dual rates. I don't need to run that. I'm using the full travel of the servo at 100%. So right now, what you see here is, for instance, on my ailerons, which is probably not the easiest to see. I'm not sure if you guys see it that well or not, but you see that deflection I'm getting is based on 70% of the 150%. I'm also using 55% expo, so it's not so yanky and janky. You see, I can move it about halfway across that travel point, and you see that's all the aileron I'm getting. Expo does apply to the tailrons as well. So you see here where I'm moving it, and the ailerons and tailrons will work with the same expo on aileron. It's not going to work with the expo I have set up for elevator, because elevator's expo is totally different. So on aileron, I'll get that expo, but on elevator, my expo is different. So it's gonna know the difference between all of that. I do have my rates set up on my gear channel. Another thing that was passed on to me by two bros as well. And after being in, Discord and stuff like that, and looking at different forums, I see a lot of people following the same thing, which is just rates on the gear. So gear-based rates. So right now I'm at my low rates, which is gonna allow me to have not so much movement and a lot more slower, precise movement, so I can make sure I keep wings level, so forth and so forth, and don't so if I cough, I don't yank the plane when I cough. But but yeah, so what I could do is when you saw that gear lock mix,
Gear locked.
I can just lock the gear. I can hit the gear channel to retract the gear, and the gear will not retract.
Gear retracted.
But you notice my rates changed. Now I'm at 100% with 71% expo. So I got a lot more travel on there. So that's 100%, 150% travel on the ailerons because I'm not getting 150% on the tailrons because remember I had the aileron giving 60%, aileron control giving 60% to the tail. So it's not going to give me all of that at the tail. That if I did, man, this thing would be probably doing corkscrews like a Rafale. But it's not doing that. So but if you see if I switch it back to gear down,
Gear extended.
it dropped.
Gear retracted.
It's up,
Gear
it
extended.
dropped.
Gear retracted.
So don't look like much, but I'm pretty sure it's a lot to the airframe when it's in the air. Same thing when we jump over to the elevator. We jump over to the elevator. You see I'm at 100% elevator travel. And this is with tailrons on. So tailrons doesn't affect that. I could turn it off while I'm holding it and you can see.
Brake retracted.
I'm sorry, that's a brake.
Tail normal.
No difference. No difference at all. So, but when I throw that gear down,
Gear extended.
I'm not using as much. Now, I do have enough to get out of a situation if I need to bail out. And that's what's important. I got enough to get out of a situation if I need to go around. But I don't have too much to where I'm going to create myself a stall from pulling and yanking too hard.
Gear retracted.
Like I probably would do when I'm there. Because I'm getting 150% of that servo travel. Now, these are free-wing servos. These are not AGFs. These are AGFs. I'll probably be getting a lot more. And I'm also not on the adjustment that's going to give me the most either. I'm on the last hole out on the control surface, on the servo horn, on the control horn, I'm sorry. And on the servo, I am on the last hole out as well. So I'm getting the maximum push the servo can give me, but I'm not getting the maximum that the control surface can receive. I don't want too much of that. I want to have a little bit of resolution there. So that gives me just a little bit there. Not a whole lot like it probably would if it was stopped, but it's enough. Moving on to the rudder. So we jump over here to rudder, and you guys can see the rudder it's basically the same thing. When the gear goes down, it's not as much because one, when I'm on the ground trying to take off, I don't want a whole lot of steering where I gotta, it wanting to yank and jank around or whatnot. Now, if I need to turn the plane around, of course, I would lock the gear.
Gear retracted.
I would do it like that, and I would turn the plane around and get the maximum turning radius. But then when I'm done, I put it back in extension.
Gear unlocked.
I'll unlock the gear, and then I'll go about my way taking off or whatnot. And once I take off, then I put my gear up like normal. So that's basically how I work the rudder. And that about covers it, guys. I mean, that really about covers it. Now, I don't know if I showed y'all the mixing for the gear. So, guys, going over that gear lock, we go in here and we go to, we go back into our mixing. And the gear lock is basically cut and dry. You're going to just go, it's the same thing like the air brake, the auto air brake. So it's just, when I put this gear lock on, because I got it on my D switch, it's going to influence the movement of gear. If you watch the GER over there, you see it's going to go from 100
Gear locked.
to 150. It's trying to push way past that 150. It knows it's trying to push way past that 150. So when I actually retract the gear,
Gear retracted.
it only drops it down to 25 because I'm already at 100. I'm influencing it 125%. So when I throw the gear up, that leaves that 25%. So now what I do is I want to make sure I
Gear extended.
put the gear back down
Gear unlocked.
before I unlock it. Like I said, Freewing retracts will not change state from what I've seen working with this, it won't change state if they don't see 151 to 152%. I will tell you this, try to put it somewhere over 155%. That way it can change state if you're doing the auto air brake, which you saw mine was at 100. It was at 51%. I'm sorry. Yeah, 51%. It has to see 50. It has to see a 51% difference one way or the other to change state. But that's bare minimum. It might not change state. So that's why you see what I did for my auto air brake. It's 57% difference. That's a definite. It's going to change state. But if it's still within that same side of where it's at, it's on positive 100%, and it drops down to a 25 positive, then it's not going to change state. The signal is not good enough for it. So it won't change state. Well, guys, that pretty much covers it. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up because I've been probably boring some of you with this for quite a little bit. That's, like I said, that's basically about all there is to it. Other than that, the only other mod I have in there is that 5280, which I will run that up. And I'm just gonna move you guys out of the way of the whatchamacallit there, because I don't want you to be hearing a whole bunch of wind and tearing up speakers. But yeah, that 9-blade fan
Power on.
is what I got in there with the aluminum housing. Yeah, it actually looks pretty good. Even off camera. I know the camera probably makes it look a little bit more exaggerated, but it looks really good. I'm happy with it. Voltage was dropping down on that pack because it was only at storage. But guys, I'm going to go ahead and cut on out of here. Thank you all again for coming through and watching. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. And I will see you guys in the next one, which will probably be the maiden flight of this thing. I'm also going to get that L39 back in the air again, because that is an awesome bird, man. But I won't be as afraid of it this time. I already made it, so second flight is usually better. All right, guys. RC Pilot Will out.